It's fairly obvious that good engagement of students in the learning process should be beneficial to their learning. We often complain today of students' lack of engagement, and invariably engagement is bound up with motivation. We would expect that students who are more motivated for whatever reason are likely to engage more in the learning activities we set them. So it's an important educational outcome in its own right. Suggests that students are positively functioning, though sometimes it could be engagement for other reasons, not necessarily for our learning outcomes. But it's also an indicator in terms of predicting highly valued outcomes such as students' academic progress and achievement. So it's an important area. And invariably, evidence-based teaching and IM theory is about understanding how the mind works and what teaching methods work best. And now perhaps we might engage students in terms of positive functioning ways to become more successful with their learning. Okay, just for some clarification here, that when we talk about engagement from the psychological perspective, it's broken down into some key components, constructs, dimensions. Let's have a look at these. One is that we can look at engagement in terms of the student behaviour, that we observe that they're on task, they're making effort, they're persisting. So that's an indicator of attainment. We're interested in seeing these kind of things in classrooms. But equally, there is the feeling aspect, the emotional aspect of engagement. Do students actually feel interested? Are they enthusiastic about learning? Now, we know that for a lot of school activity, there might not be a great degree of emotional engagement, but if we can foster it, it's a big positive. And the other main component is cognitive engagement, and that is that the students are engaged at the level of thinking and are applying learning strategies. In other words, they are trying to learn through conscious activity, and as we know, this goes on in working memory. Now, ideally, if we see evidence that students are engaged across these three components, then that's a pretty good indicator that they're engaged. Now, we're adding a third component here, and it comes from the work of John Marshall Reed and Zeng, and they talk about something called agentic engagement. Now, invariably, it's connected to the others. They define it in these terms. It's quite a long definition. You can kind of digest this yourself, but it basically means that, yeah, the students could well be engaged behaviourally, emotionally, and cognitively, but also another dimension is that they take an active lead, and that's what agentic actually means, that they are not just there as passive recipients to the learning experience, but actually will ask questions, contribute ideas, and if necessary, even suggest alternative ways for the lesson to be conducted or aspects of it. So let's have a look at some examples. There we go, you can read these. But it's when the student is in a state of mind or feels that they can say to the lecturer, you and me, look, can we learn in these ways? Can we have some case studies? Can we have some videos? And that kind of thing. And at the moment, we're thinking this, is this correct? So what we've got there really is engaged in the learning process collaboratively with us. Okay, last slide. So how do we create and maintain student engagement? Well, we're experienced teachers. We know a lot of it is bound up with giving students things that they see as relevant, purposeful, tasks, and that's evidence-based teaching. But we also know a lot is to do with the relationships we create with students. And there's a nice quote captured by Mearns, but this is standard across the literature. It's an eye effect thing in terms of Atty's effect sizes, if you remember that. So it's about perception. If we as teachers are perceived as approachable, well prepared, sensitive to student needs, blah, 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 you can read all that. And this is very much consistent with Daniel Willingham's work. And he found that by looking at our students assess their faculty, it boils down to two main constructs. Is the teacher well organised, and is the teacher a nice person? So as we work with our students in this project, we're trying to get across that we are well organised and nice people, and that's what supportive autonomy supportive style is about, coming across as a fair, nice person. And the core principles help us to get good pedagogic structure. And of course, these two things interact in terms of the total experience we create. So we're nearly there. So if we want to develop engagement, and also with a bit of a focus on this fourth component, agentic engagement, obviously an autonomy supporting style will do that, especially when we get feedback from students, because that's how we encourage them to take some agency in the instructional strategy process. That's a really important thing to employ. And invariably, so much is bound up with students' beliefs and their capability to take an agentic perspective, that they feel, yeah, if I do this, I will get better relationships with my tutor, I will have better learning opportunities, and I'm more likely to develop the competence which we know is an important aspect for students' self-efficacy and further development. So, three key things for us to always bear in mind here is the growth mindset thing, getting across to students that where they are now is where they are now, but where they're going to be in the future, a lot will be determined by the effort they put in. And as teachers, we try to facilitate that process. So the idea of the growth mindset that if I make an effort, I will get better at this particular activity, because that's the way learning works. Invariably, we want students to achieve important learning goals. So if they experience mastery learning, in other words, that they're not just going into class and doing stuff, but they're actually identifying specific skills and perhaps key understandings that they're attaining from the learning process, that reinforces the growth mindset, but it also reinforces their feelings of self-efficacy. And this is a well-documented area in the literature, goes right back to the pioneering work of Bandura, that when students have high self-efficacy, that is the belief that with effort, they have the capability to be successful. That's a very positive learning outcome. So engagement, yes, we want it. We need to understand its components, how it works, but most importantly, the way we build relationships with students, and some of the key things that we focus on as part of our instructional strategy to get these positive perceptions from the students so that they develop the growth mindset, mastery learning, which is essentially competence, and that they build a good sense, a realistic sense of self